system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range, cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. You're mine.
Hello and welcome back to the Smite Draft League 3v3 Mage Tournament. They might have been dominant last time, but boy, do they have a mountain to climb. I'm Anthony, he's KingFsher. Are you ready?
I am ready, excited to get into this game. And that was a really dominant performance we saw from Sharkface97 last game. I think only got one death in there at the end, diving the Titan. So it should be interesting to see how they stack up against this squad.
Yeah, they had a fantastic game, but you can't really find a much tougher opponent than a world champion, especially when it comes to trying to ban out the world champion.
Yeah, definitely hard to do. Hard task to ban out anyone. I think the thing that keeps this one interesting is no defensive items allowed. I was ready to go into this seeing tons of Nox, Hell, Chang'e, building really tanky, but no, it is full glass cannon.
Yeah, for sure, and I think with that too, we kind of saw last game a bit of caution on playing too passive, because ultimately you can't really turtle too much, because with mage abilities, the distance they have with the lack of defense, you can just get blown up so easy. You may as well go aggressive.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act for sure, and I think might also be hard just transitioning to the Joust playstyle in general after playing Conquest for so long, just got the league started. So maybe a little remixing of priorities there is looking at the bans. We see a couple that were played last game. I think Zhong was played last game, but Baba Yaga and Thoth again are going to be taken out of the pool.
Yeah, I think that's big, and I was actually going to talk to you about it. As tough as it might be to not just try to ban out the world champion, as we see the Baron Samedi as the first lock-in, it's kind of almost an impossible task, because you could ban out Hebo, Hell, Morgan Le Fay, Persephone, Scylla, Morgan, Tiamat, and there's still characters that are going to give you a hard time from Stipend, so it's a tough task.
Yeah, it definitely is a balancing act. I really like the route they've gone, though, banning out the Oloron. I think probably one of the best magical ADCs, and our desk already highlighted last game how important that was to sieging towers and getting a lot of aggression early. But in terms of focus banning, I think the best approach is just take out the gods that you are the most scared of. Wouldn't really worry about what they can do, because they can do pretty much anything.
Ultimately, you're going to have to play your best game of Smite, but you're going to have to play to your strengths if you want it to matter. So psyching yourself out is not the route to take here.
Yeah, definitely not. Comfortability is key. And a Hades and a Hera, we saw the Hades ban last time, maybe was a little bit of a target ban against Kaaahn, who I believe is a maximum Joust player. But the Hera, that Argus is going to be invaluable in those team fights. I'm kind of surprised I wasn't banned top 3.
Yeah, I think Argus is going to be a difference maker, and I think Hades, on the same wavelength as Baron Samedi, is just always such a difference maker in Joust because of the map size. I mean, we talk about it, you and I together, a lot, but if you boil Smite down to big circles, ultimately they can be game changers a lot of the time.
Yeah, the bigger the circle, the bigger the damage. That's normally the general rule. Now waiting on this last pick here, and a pick we saw last game that I really liked was the Opwash. I think Giants talked about seeing a couple of nerfs in Joust specifically because of how overpowered he is, but that ultimate is so wide, it covers so much of the map, and especially on a map like this one, there's no side jungle. You're either walking towards him or away from him, but either way, the Opwash is winning.
Yeah, it's funny, in normal Joust, granted, again, this is a mage tournament, there's no other classes are allowed, but in a normal Joust, Oppak is up there with being a #1 ban. Pretty much, again, aside from the nerfs, pretty much constantly. It's kind of a necessity.
Yeah, it definitely is, and a Chang'e pick, so can't build into hybrid like normally they do, but still, invulnerability going to be incredibly nice, along with a really good heal for the team. That thing has such a short cooldown, I think kind of tends to go undervalued sometimes, just how much of an impact it can make.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the cute little rabbit passive doesn't matter as much, but like you said, very impactful.
But yeah, now I think I am a little more surprised we don't see the Opwash. I'd like that pick to come out from Stipend Goated. I mean, looking at the other team, Chang'e and Baron provide a massive amount of healing, CC, utility. I think the anti-heal built into his kit would really help to shut that down. I think high-valued Divine Ruins are also going to be really relevant this game. wow, I can't say
Yeah,
that.
if you're not able to build any defense, you need to prioritize the utility items that you can build to try to kind of almost reverse engineer your own version of defense.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think it's a very popular item, but Rod of Asclepius was one I've liked for a long time, feels really great in healing comps. And yeah, it's going to give you extra health, extra movement speed, and increase the healing all around, so I could see that potentially being an item they picked up. But more about healing, Eset going to be banned, another god with a massive, massive ultimate.
Yeah, I like taking Eset off the board, and as we see the Chronos get hovered, can't get all the Mage ADCs.
Yeah, definitely can't. I like the pick, maybe lacking on a little bit of anti-heal compared to some others, but still, Chronos insanely powerful. I know we talked about the value of Mage ADC. If they do pick this one up, the only magical ADC remaining is gonna be the Freya. Freya, I think, normally has a little bit of a rougher time compared to these other ones, though.
Yeah, we saw that last game. The Freya had a very hard time get going, and it's almost like they're listening. The watch, oh boy, get that locked in.
Yeah, definitely love to see it there. But if they do lock this in, that does leave the door open, obviously, for the Order side team to pick up Chronos if they want, or really anybody to burst down these towers. I think that's about the only thing missing from Stypin Goated, but the presence of that Argus would make it a lot easier, as it's going to be a Merlin pick.
A Merlin followed by an Anubis, all that teasing for the plot twists. Oh, I'm so excited to get into this game. Quick last thoughts. Give me a few words, and then we'll head out and wait for the game.
Anti-heal is gonna win the game if Stipend Goated builds it, because that is an insane amount of lifesteal on the enemy team, but it's really a toss-up, I think, as we get into this next game.
All right, keep that in mind, and we'll be right back on the Smite Draft League. Welcome back to the Smite Draft League. It's time to get in game. Sharkface is looking to continue the run, but they've run into a world champion. I'm Anthony. He's KingFsher. Let's do it, baby.
Yeah, should definitely be excited. And I think right here about the biggest difference from Joust to Conquest. There's one thing to contend over on the map until like 20 minutes, and that is this first red buff. Could even say whoever gets it first is gonna win the game. I've heard that's true, like 90% of the time.
Oh yeah, just like the first auto attack wins you the game. As we do see the Hades and the Chang'e dancing it out for the red buff, and ultimately we're gonna leave the big guy and head towards the wave. First wave pressure looks like it's gonna go the way of Stipend Goated, and now they're gonna turn their attention to the red buff.
Yeah, I think normally that opens a red buff right up, but being all mages, they still clear that wave really, really fast. And looking at the builds here, they are building into first item lifesteal on the side of Sharkface97, and I think all three of them it's really great on because healing is such a big part of their kit.
Yeah, definitely. Anubis backed off to do the blue buff, which allowed a 3v2, but Hades was the one who walked away with most of the damage. As we're going to see another clean wave clear, and no fighting yet, but Chang'e is starting to take a step or two up to see what can happen. And it looks like we might see a blue buff invade, but Stipend Goated got it a little bit quicker than Sharkface might have been expecting.
Yeah, and I think Chang'e, one of the few, just characters in this tournament that's kind of allowed to step up, get aggressive early. That invulnerability immunes so many of those big damage abilities, even at such an early level. Hades with an aggressive dash in.
Big dash from the Hades and big damage in the back, but now the damage is on Baron Samedi. He's trying to get away. He's down to just about a quarter health, but nobody's right up there to follow up and get the final blow. And barely getting away with his life is TDfregz. That was a close one.
Yeah, it was. Really great job by the Merlin landing that combo. It's going to force not one, but all three of the members of Sharkface back to base. Maybe that's a little bit of a strategic thing. Stypin all transition over to level 5, so maybe not wanting to get picked off one by one there.
Yeah, and we saw the instant back together. We saw some really great communication with how fast they were able to burn the blue buff. This isn't as serious as a normal 5v5 conquest that you and I might cast, but we always harp on communication. And when you have somebody with the kind of experience that Paul has, getting that communication online as quick as they probably have could be a really big deal, even in something so simple, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. Also, the fact that people are allowed to bring their own teams, I think helps enormously. Whether compared to the draft league, you kind of just get picked up by somebody and then you gotta make your bed there. Although everybody is pretty great, gotta love teaming with them all. But yeah, I think normally coming in with already some sort of team flow, team dynamic, this Hades now has fully finished his Bancroft's Talon, I don't think he's got it upgraded yet. Needs to be careful. When he goes in and ult, that Anubis ult from Kaaahn is going to do a massive amount of damage.
Yeah, and I think, especially depending on how late we get in the game, the Anubis being able to burn that Titan could be something to keep an eye out for, too.
Yeah, definitely. Him, and I think the Merlin, too. Obviously on the other side. So both teams, although they lack those kind of traditional ADCs, have a lot of value when it comes to sieging Titan. Towers maybe going to take a bit longer. And I think that's 2 Divine Ruins being built early by Stipend Goated, and I think that's exactly what they need to do with these builds to make sure Sharkface doesn't get that early lead.
Yeah, I think we said it best talking on the picks and bans about the need for utility items to replace the defense that you cannot build in this 3v3 Mage tournament. The red buff is about to come up, so we're going to have another bit of a beatdown over here trying to fight over it. But everybody's biding their time. I'm curious to see that red buff didn't... I mean, obviously there was a fight over it, but it wasn't as highly contested in the first one as we thought it might be.
Yeah, and I think it definitely will be this time. Obviously, everybody with their ult on board. I think Mages more than any class. Ooh, as Argus comes out.
Big damage from Hera, and Argus is running down Baron, but he's getting called back because Hera's got a red buff duty on board, and that's a red buff secure for Stipend Goated, and Sharkface got to fall back to the blue buff.
Yeah, and just as I was saying, I think Mages, more than any other class, as soon as they get their ultimate, they become a whole nother tier. They get so much better, so much more deadly, so I think normally that second red buff fight, really the first thing to contest with that in their kit. So no wonder we see a lot of aggression on it, and Stipend Goated again going to come out with it.
Yeah, and Chang'e had to take some steps back. That Argus running at her might have been a little bit intimidating. But something I'm looking for, too, we saw a really early Bull Demon last game for Sharkface. They were pressuring it out at about 5 minutes, so I'm curious if we're going to see more of the same or a bit of a different tactic this time.
Expect a little bit different. I think Sharkface did have that soul on board last time, so obviously when they did get that Bull Demon King, could really easy aggress onto it and find a ton of damage. Not really the same potential with Stipend Goated, but if they keep team fighting like that and just backing them off so early, definitely a good chance to. I mean, contention on the tower, even when it's not shooting, is really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I agree, and we do see the first Divine Ruin come online, but the Hera went the way of Spirit of Desolation. We might have a bit of a fight here coming up. Hades and Baron throwing a bit of hand, some decent damage onto the Hades, a little bit above half, but nothing too crazy yet, just some wave clearing. Do you think that Spirit of Deso is going to prove valuable?
I do think so late game because, I mean, there is not a ton of CC out on the side from Stipend Goated. That Polymorph really is about it, besides that Hades ult, obviously. So I think if he is able to get a kill, reset that, going to be really valuable going later into the team fights. But something else I want to talk about, we've mentioned utility items in place of tank items. Do you think any of these Sands of Time upgrade to... Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but the one that saves your life? Alternate timeline, that's it.
I'd love to see it. You know, we didn't get the Chronos picked, but why pick Chronos when you could have Chronos as an item? I think the item is kind of always going to undervalued. I understand, statistically speaking, it isn't the best, but that passive can be so valuable, especially if you're able to get that passive off and be in a safe enough place where it can actually save you. It can be an absolute game changer. I really like it in Joust.
Yeah, I do too, but obviously the caveat of that is getting into a safe place because, I mean, let's face it doesn't matter how much health you have, 1 or 2 abilities, you're going to be dead no matter what, so really going to be a balancing act, I think. And again, Sharkface all backing at the same time while Stipend Goated, maybe going to get a few warriors for free on that minion wave. That's kind of the funny thing about Joust. There is literally nothing to do except for fight.
Yeah, and there's nothing to do except for fight, and we've seen them kind of be very patient with the fighting this game. We've seen a couple big engages, but nothing too crazy. I don't know if Sharkface is trying to wait for the perfect moment because they don't want to give up early kills to Stipend Goated, or if Stipend Goated is hanging back and hoping Sharkface will be overly aggressive and make a mistake. We do see some good damage come out fighting over this red buff. No big difference yet. But it looks like Sharkface is backing up a bit, and Baron's going to head over to blue buff with Anubis to secure it. And in response, Stipend might have themselves a free red buff.
Yeah, I think they do, and they did drop it. Oh no, actually, Chang'e stole it with the ultimate, I believe. You'd love to see that if you're on the side of Sharkface, XP for both sides. Besides that Chang'e ult, I think we have seen one other ult in 7.5 minutes, obviously being that Argus that was dropped.
But Baron went for the red buff, and it might have been a little greedy, but Hades is going to get caught out and wrapped up by Anubis. Now here comes the Baron ult. First blood goes the way of Sharkface, but not until Yelena can come back and get the kill for themselves.
Yeah, really good trade there by Stipend Goaded, ensuring that that Baron dies as well for stepping up. And you think if you're Sharkface, you gotta like that trade. That first kill XP bonus could be really, really great when there's as little chances as this. Now Stipend Goaded, because of their team comp, have a little bit more pressure on this tower now. Maybe translate that into some wave pressure and allow them to get out of lane. Oh, but no Merlin
wrap on the Merlin, but the blink is enough to get away. Great having that in your kit and not having to use a relic, and now we've got the Chang'e throwing hands with Hera. And it's went from being incredibly calm to a bit of a brawl, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see that pick up more as levels increase. I think even lower levels, mages have a really, really low health pool, and without some of those items, no real way to expand it a whole ton. But I think as they do get more damage, they're going to be more confident stepping up. And I mean, these players know exactly what level they have to be, what items they need to get the advantage. So I think it'll be really interesting to see if both of them kind of push a pedal at the same time, or we see some difference in strategies.
We do see the first Divine Ruin come online for Sharkface, so that could be something big to watch for as, you know, as both sides are going very lifesteal heavy. I wonder how much of an impact that will actually be, or if there's just going to be so much damage coming out, those little utilities might actually not be as important as we thought. As the Baron stepped a bit too far, and Yang's going to get the kill, but he got so low he had to get out of there. And now Chang'e's trying to get away from Paul, and he's not going to be able to do it, as that's 2 kills going the way of Stipend Goaded here at 9 minutes.
Yeah, great job by Stipend Goaded in that team fight again, catching out that Baron. Samedi stepped a little far forward, but still, lack of a magical ADC. Ooh, Paul putting on some good pressure though, Anubis has to back.
Get back under your Phoenix or you might get one shot, and now Stipend Goaded turns their attentions towards potentially a 10-minute Bull Demon King.
Yeah, they definitely have the DPS to burst through it now, all ticking over into double digits. Sharkface, no real way to contest. Now, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this, if they got that kind of just for XP, or if they do plan to push this tower. I think it's about a minute there, I could be wrong on the lockdown, and all of them have a level advantage, so I could definitely see them getting aggressive here.
Yeah, I think with so far how we've seen this game go, advantages might be few and far between. So if I'm Stipend Goaded, I'm going to try to maybe get the red buff first, get some damage potentially onto the Merlin or the Hera, and then run them under tower. But if they can test this red buff, I'm chasing them all the way down. That's exactly what they do. Big ultimate comes out from Paul, and Kaahn's going to get blown up. And now Hades and Baron are fighting for it, and Paul blows up. Baron, Samedi too. Now the only one left standing is Chang'e. And almost a beautiful play, but it turns into a double kill for Yang. And it looks like we're going to have our first tower after the deicide, going the way of Stipend Goaded.
Yeah, incredible play from Stipend Goaded, and I think really surprising how quickly they all turned on to one member. I mean, that's the kind of chemistry you don't just get overnight. Obviously, these players having some prior experience. Now, because they're so high level, the Phoenix gonna fall too. 11 minutes in, no tower standing for Sharkface. But now where do you go from here? I think this is where Joust can kind of stall out a little bit, and I think they're just going to be bullying them under Titan until they gear up for another big push.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think what might be necessary for them to be able to take this Titan would be somebody getting caught out from Sharkface. Maybe you pick off the Anubis and get rid of that insane damage over time that ultimate and his 3 give you. But also, going for that Baron and eliminating that ultimate could be big, because so far, the Chang'e has not been, I won't say she's been absent, but aside from the ultimate to steal the red buff, not incredibly impactful so far.
Yeah, and I think Chang'e has a lower base damage than most other mages on her abilities, I think, so maybe struggling to get in there a little bit. And this Hades does have a blink, so I think Stipend Goaded may be looking for a really aggressive Hades ult, as that could open the door. And I definitely agree, getting Baron down first would be the play. I mean, Anubis' ult is strong, but rooting yourself against a Merlin and a Hera, you are taking an obscene amount of damage if you're not able to hit your targets correctly and get that lifesteal off really, really fast.
We've seen this game take a major turn based off the last performance we saw from Sharkface. and now all of a sudden they find themselves preparing for a Titan defense. There's a fire wave coming. They've got a world champion on the other end. Things aren't looking great, but it's not over yet, so don't quite count them out.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think that is one of the beauties of Joust compared to Conquest. I mean, if you land a deicide, you can do so much on the map because it's so compact and so focused. On Conquest, you land a deicide in defense, and maybe you get a tower, maybe a Primal Fury, something like that. But in here, you can take it all the way to the end. And I did have it pointed out to me, unfortunately, alternate timeline has protection, so we are not going to see that incredible starter in this one.
Oh, that's tough. I didn't think about that either. The items picked up so rarely, I kind of forgot what the stats were, so I can't really blame you on that one.
Yeah, well, one of the few bad things about no defense items. I think the builds are more straightforward, but it's definitely a lot more action-packed, and I think, like you said earlier, everybody is building into massive lifesteal. Divine Ruins aren't going to be enough, and no Cursed Onks either, so this is going to be a war of attrition here as they kind of start looking towards the Titan.
Yeah, it's... Again, it looks like Stypin Goated's just waiting for the right opportunity, but as we saw in the last team fight, if you make a mistake, you're gonna get punished for it when you're facing Goated here. And might see a bit of aggression. Merlin's trying to get a pick, but gonna have to fall back under that Phoenix, and potentially might have to wait for another Phoenix Siege before they can really dive in.
Yeah, and I think they were looking for an opening there. I think Stipend Goated has been playing all together really well as Sharkface, maybe spreading out a little bit more than you'd like when backing up. Obviously, not overextending, not giving any opportunities away. But now Stipend Goated able to really strangle their XP here by keeping them pushed up so far. The Bold Demon King is respawned, and they are going right back to it. If you're Sharkface, or I guess they're not, but if you are Sharkface, do you want to contest this next one, or are you just kind of letting that slide?
I think if I'm on Sharkface, I'm a bit worried that if they go for Bull Demon, it might be a bait. Because whether it's a bait for a backdoor or a bait just for a fight outright to kill off Sharkface, I'm a bit hesitant for it. I almost let it go, but at the same time, like you said, there's nothing else to do on the map. So if you just keep turtling and turtling, while that is an effective strategy, it might not necessarily win you the game because it's not like they're going up against people where they're going to easily be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think we saw that really good last game. Obviously, there was one team forced under the Titan for a lot of the time, just never really able to get out of there before Sharkface were able to really get in there, get dirty, and clean up the kills. The same thing might happen here, but I think, like you said, there's not a lot to do. You really got to play clean technical Smite if you want to dig your way out of this one. They're not even that far behind, I think. Other team just playing better as they look for a big engage onto the Titan.
And here goes the damage. Chonga gets picked up by Yang. Yang gets Kaaahn, but Baron gets Paul in the back, and now it's up to Baron for the Titan defense. But he got some good damage off on the Hades. He might have just done it, but there is a fire wave coming up, so here comes the Merlin. He's right on the Baron, but Hades was not there to follow it up. And just like that, the Titan's down to a quarter health. 5% gone! Stipend Goated picks up the W against Sharkface.
Yeah, great game from Stipend Goated. That engage was beautiful, all at the same time, really coordinated. Dropped Anubis and Shanga down to, what, 200, 300 health before they could even react. Really clean engage, waiting there, picking their spot, picking their timing beautifully. I gotta hand it to Sharkface97. Played a really solid game there in the first one, and again in the second, just a little outmatched at the end.
Yeah, I think overall the performance was impressive, but that one early team fight that swung the way of Goated was just enough to keep too much pressure on Sharkface where they really couldn't do much to respond. Do you see anything that pops out at you on the player charts before we move forward here?
I mean, other than some massive player damage from that Hera, I think the one thing I do like to see with Joust, 100% play or kill involvement from all players. Always nice to see, and I think a testament to how well these teams play together and coordinate their targets. But yeah, I think really strong game from both sides.
And with that, we're going to be right back. Stipend Goated moves on, Paul's going forward, and Sharkface has their day cut a little shorter than they expected. We'll be right back on the Smite Draft League 3v3 Mage Tournament.